Why are China and Russia uniting in the Israel-Hamas crisis? This question has been echoing around the globe, as we find ourselves in the midst of a complex geopolitical situation. To understand the dynamics, let's take a step back and take a look at the Israel-Hamas crisis. This conflict, steeped in a long history, has seen Israel and the Palestinian organization Hamas locked in a tense standoff, with bouts of violence often flaring up in the Gaza Strip. Traditionally, the United States has been a staunch supporter of Israel, supplying military aid and standing by Israel in international forums. However, this alignment has not gone unchallenged. Enter China and Russia. These two global powerhouses have shown a growing interest in the crisis, positioning themselves in support of the Palestinians. This is a significant contrast to the United States' stance, and it's raising eyebrows worldwide. China, with its call for restraint and criticism of Israel's actions, and Russia, expressing sympathy for the Palestinians and pointing fingers at the US, are strategically positioning themselves as champions of the developing world. As the world watches this crisis unfold, China and Russia are making strategic moves. But why? Both China and Russia have a history of supporting the Palestinians, but in recent times their actions have become more pronounced, more decisive. They've put their weight behind the Palestinian cause, and this has been highly evident in the Israel-Hamas crisis. China has delivered a stern critique of Israel's actions, calling for restraint. It's a move that marks China's more assertive role in the global arena, championing the cause of the developing world. At the same time, Russia has voiced its sympathy for the Palestinians, laying the blame squarely at the United States' doorstep. The narrative is clear. They're both positioning themselves in contrast to the United States and its support for Israel. But their backing for the Palestinians isn't merely a war of words. It's a call to action, backed by tangible on-ground support. Russia has been dispatching humanitarian aid to Gaza, providing much-needed relief in a time of crisis. It's a move that underscores Russia's commitment to the Palestinian cause and highlights its criticism of US policy in the region. China, on the other hand, has been making diplomatic strides. It has dispatched its Middle East envoy to the region, a move that is seen as an effort to mediate and bring about peace. While China has so far maintained an even-handed approach towards both the Palestinians and Israel, it has made it clear that it would tilt the balance in favor of the Palestinians if Israel expands the war and causes more humanitarian casualties. What we're seeing here is a strategic alignment between China and Russia, a shared history of supporting the Palestinians, and a unified criticism of US policy. They're both leveraging this crisis to position themselves as champions of the developing world and to counterbalance US influence. Clearly, both nations are taking decisive steps towards supporting the Palestinians. But what is driving this unity? What are the geopolitical motivations behind this concerted support? Stay tuned as we delve deeper into these questions in the next segment. Both China and Russia are using this crisis to position themselves as champions of the developing world. Yes, you heard that right. The Israel-Hamas crisis is being leveraged as a platform by these two nations to counterbalance the influence of the United States and deepen their ties with the global South. In the intricate dance of international politics, the Middle East crisis has presented an opportunity for China and Russia to present a united front. They've found common ground in their shared criticism of US policy. And boy, are they vocal about it. Both nations have expressed sympathy towards the Palestinians, pointing fingers at the US for the tense situation in the Middle East. But this is not just about showing empathy or pointing blame. Let's dig a bit deeper. The strategies of China and Russia in the Middle East might not be fully aligned, but their interests intersect significantly when it comes to challenging US dominance. China's stance has been one of caution, calling for restraint and criticizing Israel's actions. They've sent their Middle East envoy to the region, signaling a willingness to mediate and perhaps subtly hinting at their growing global influence. On the other hand, Russia has been more direct, sending humanitarian aid to Gaza and blaming the US for the conflict. In this chessboard of geopolitics, China and Russia are portraying the US as a driver of the conflict. Why, you ask? It's beneficial to their own geopolitical interests. By presenting themselves as champions of the developing world, they're not only gaining allies but also subtly challenging the existing power dynamics. This is a classic play of power politics, my friends, and it's happening right here, right now, before our very eyes. It's not just about the Israel-Hamas crisis anymore, it's a larger geopolitical game where major global players are vying for influence and power. This is not just about the Israel-Hamas crisis, it's a larger geopolitical game. So let's keep our eyes on the board, because the game is far from over. As China and Russia align their strategies, the world watches with bated breath. The potential consequences of this alignment are far-reaching and complex, as these two powerful nations find common cause in the Israel-Hamas crisis. If we examine the situation closely, China's even-handed approach between the Palestinians and Israel is noteworthy. However, if Israel expands the war and causes more humanitarian casualties, the situation could see a significant shift. China might tilt the balance in favor of the Palestinians, a move that could alter the dynamics of the Middle East conflict significantly. These actions are not just about the immediate crisis, they are indicative of a larger narrative, a narrative that sees China and Russia attempting to counterbalance the influence of the United States on the global stage. By portraying the United States as a driver of conflict, they aim to position themselves as champions of the developing world, as leaders who are sensitive to the plights of nations caught in the throes of conflict. So what does this alignment mean for the world at large? It could potentially recalibrate international relations and global politics. The Middle East, a region already fraught with tensions, could find itself further destabilized. This might lead to a ripple effect, impacting countries and regions far beyond the immediate conflict zone. And let's not forget the humanitarian aspect. If the war expands and results in more casualties, the world will be faced with a crisis of an even greater magnitude. The human cost of such a conflict is immeasurable, and the world community would be compelled to respond. But it's not all doom and gloom. These shifts also present an opportunity for dialogue and diplomacy. As the world watches these developments, it's crucial for nations to work towards peaceful solutions, to engage in constructive dialogue, and to prioritize the protection of human rights and dignity. The stakes are high, and the world is watching. As the dynamics shift and realign, we all hold our collective breath, hoping for resolutions that bring peace, stability, and justice. As we delve deeper into this crisis, we find that it's not just about the Israel-Hamas conflict. The gears turning behind the scenes are fueled by a complex web of geopolitics, historical alliances, and strategic interests. Yes, indeed, the world is a stage and the nations, its actors. In today's exploration, we've unfolded the reasons behind China and Russia's unity in the Israel-Hamas crisis. We've journeyed through the intricate narrative of their historical support for the Palestinians, their strategic motivations to counterbalance US influence, and the potential consequences of their actions. This crisis, it's not just about Israel and Hamas, it's about the larger geopolitical game being played on the world stage. China and Russia, two global powerhouses, are finding common cause with countries in the Middle East in support of the Palestinians. This is seen as an opportunity to position themselves as champions of the developing world, in contrast to the United States' support for Israel. China's calls for restraint and criticism of Israel's actions, coupled with Russia's sympathy for the Palestinians and blame placed on the US, paint a clear picture of their stance. Both leaders, Putin and Xi Jinping, have sought to deepen ties with the global South to counterbalance US influence. But what does this mean for the future? Well, if Israel expands the war and causes more humanitarian casualties, the balance could tilt further in favor of the Palestinians. Such a scenario could escalate tensions and potentially lead to more conflicts. The stakes are high and the world watches on, anticipating the next move in this high-stakes game of chess. Portraying the US as a driver of the conflict is seen as beneficial to the geopolitical interests of China and Russia. This is a strategic move that could have far-reaching implications not just for the Middle East but for the world at large. Why are China and Russia uniting in the Israel-Hamas crisis? The answer lies in a complex web of geopolitics, history, and strategic interest. As the world watches, only time will tell what the future holds. As we conclude, let's pause and ponder. What do you think about the actions of China and Russia in this crisis? What do you believe are the potential consequences of their unity? How does this affect the global balance of power? And most importantly, are we on the brink of a new World War III? The world is a complex place, and understanding it requires discussion, debate, and shared knowledge. So, share your thoughts, your perspectives. Let's continue this conversation, and together we can navigate the complexities of our world.